Welcome to Being at Home with George during COVID. I'm very excited to be here with you at this time, and just want to set the tone for the offering, which is really this idea of embracing whatever comes up, pain, frustration, low energy, uh, excitation, whatever it is. Can we embrace it and at the same time generate hope? And part of generating hope is really just investigating and seeing how we can solve problems or how we can find solutions and how we can find a way forward. And that requires making energy. There's no success without sustained effort or energy. And so I'm reminded of this idea, and I've been experiencing myself what I would call dark days of COVID. Now, when I was to work with the NBA teams, and we used to have these dog days where you get near the end of the season, and it's like you just have to push yourself. You have to find the energy because you're playing another game, and it might be, fifth game in 7 nights, and that was the old days. Maybe it's more like 3 days and 3 games and 4 nights now, or whatever it is. But it's about low energy, and so when you have low energy or lethargy, it's just really challenging because you don't feel like doing anything. It's like a little depression, but it's just low energy. And so, how do we, in those dark days, how do we have access to power? And it's interesting because when I developed my book, The Mindful Athlete Secrets to Pure Performance, it's about the superpowers, having access to power, having our own power plant with those. And I don't need to mention all of them, but we're talking about mindfulness, we're talking about concentration, we're talking about insight, we're talking about right effort, and we're talking about trust. And in this case of low energy and enthusiasm, so to me, it's like, okay, so if I have low energy, when I talk about the superpowers, one of the things that mindfulness does is that it balances the superpowers, it develops them and balances them. And so in the case of right effort or low energy, we'll say we have low energy because we're too relaxed, or we have steadiness of mind, poise, concentration, too concentrated, and we have to raise the energy so that they're in balance. So you have poise being here, and we feel a little sluggish, and we got to raise the energy and the effort. And so how we do that, and it's interesting because I like to read a lot and study a lot, and there's a book called The Essence of Success by Earl Nightingale. And in this book, he talks about the two keys to enthusiasm. And one key is learning, is becoming a learner. Because what happens is when we stop learning and we think we've arrived, then there's no excitement, there's no ability to see things in fresh and new ways. And what he's talking about is by learning, we achieve. And when you become a learner, we talk about the growth mindset, when you become a learner, then you have achievements. And when you have achievements, that generates more enthusiasm. So when I think about my own experience in this process, I feel like I have more enthusiasm and more excitement about life than I ever have had. And that's because I'm a learner. I'm in a growth mindset. And I learned since I've been on this journey to just really be able to look at things from this growth mindset. Okay, something is happening. What do I need to do? What's the lesson I need to learn? And so I learn for the sake of learning because there's joy in discovery, because I learn and I achieve. I have this enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is another way of generating the growth mindset, which I like to talk about. It's like being optimistic, having faith, and having hope. And we talk about generating hope. How do you generate hope? Well, I hope for something, and then I say, okay, so here's how to do it. Here's a way forward. And my past experiences, how do I get through lethargy before when I have low energy? I think about things that are important to me, or I look at it in a way that the situation. So years ago, I used to fly to Chicago to work with violence interrupters or ceasefire. And there were times when I would leave and not sleep at all that night. And so I'd be dragging, I'd get like a 5 o'clock flight. I get to Chicago around 8:30. I start teaching at 9. I teach from 9 to 6. And then I go out with people and we talk and everything. And then I get back to my hotel about maybe 9 or 10 o'clock. Then the next day I'd have to get up, then teach from 8 to 4, 4:15 I get picked up by a taxi, and then catch a 6:30, 6:45 plane back to Boston. And what would happen is when I got out of the taxi and went into the school of public health where we ran the courses, I still have low energy. But then once I got inside, I would have access to energy because what I was doing occurred to me as being important and exciting, interesting, inspiring. And so I would just have access to power. So I had to behave my way. Effort creates energy. I just stepped up, and then I'd have access to energy. So how is that possible? So it's my thoughts and having an image of being engaged with the people that I'm engaged with. This is what I'm doing. I'm being helpful, and I get a second wind. This is what happens. And when you play at sports or when you do physical training, you experience this. You hit, you get, and even if you think about the Boston Marathon, your Heartbreak Hill, whatever, you hit the point where you're at your limit. But then if you just continue to compassionately just take the next step, just move through it, you have access to second wind. And William James, some call him the father of psychology, he said there can be as many as 13 second winds where you get fatigued, you feel fatigued, but then you just say, okay, effort creates energy. So you just move through, and then it changes my thinking because I behave my way in a proper thinking. I understand, okay, I feel, but if I just focus on making the next play, focus on the next thing, taking the next step, then I develop momentum, and then it becomes effortless. And so this idea of pushing through mentally and physically, but it's really mentally about saying, okay, I feel like sleeping, I'm fatigued, but I have a job to do. And I made a commitment, and all I got to do is just do the one thing and not think about how tired I'm going to be. So the thinking, creating thoughts that generate more energy rather than the zapping thoughts to say, oh, I'm going to be tired, I'm not going to be that good, and it's not so exciting, and I don't really feel like talking to these cats. Uh, and those are all energy zapping thoughts. And so I can change thoughts and say it's going to be exciting. This is what I'm going to do, and this is what I want to talk about, and I'm excited about it. And that changes everything. And so this idea of right effort, and here's something that's even more profound for me is we label what we love. So love is productive, it's not a feeling. It's like, and we love what we label for. So because I love working with people, I love teaching in terms of being present and just doing what you know to do in the next step, uh, do the next thing. And this acronym WIN, what's important now, and just stepping up and forgetting myself to find myself by just pushing through. And then so it's this idea of how do I generate enthusiasm? Being a learner and reflecting on how much I achieve when I do that generates enthusiasm. With the enthusiasm, that's enough energy to get me out of lethargy or to get me from low energy to high energy. And effort creates energy. So sometimes I feel like I can't do it, but if I take the next step and just keep pushing through and keep thinking thoughts that generate energy, are just going to be fun. I remember the last time I did this, but really I'm being of service. This is what I came here to do. So I need to show up and show out. And so to me, as we go through these dark days or these times when there's low energy, because it's always going to be up and down, we can realize that there's another level beyond where we are if we can just understand that good actions require great images. And that's another way to access power is to have the images of what we want and how it's going to be amazing. It's what we call outcome expectation. When we expect things to turn out well and we make the connection between the effort and what's going to be the result, the consequence of that effort, it's really powerful. And it's about love. It's about coming out of that growth mindset. What's to learn here? Oh, this is interesting. How do I relate to this in a way that generates more energy and power? And so when I look at it as being a service and I forget myself, I don't have time to be tired. I find myself and I find more access to energy, and we get that second wind, and we can understand that sometimes it's like, okay, I'm tired, but if I just show up and do what I'm supposed to do, I have access to more energy. So effort creates energy, And so even calling these dog days in some level is kind of energy zapping, but we just say it's low energy. So the mindfulness tells us I have to raise the energy. And this is important when we, in life and in sports, we have to have this ability to, instead of getting tired and withdrawing energy, we have to bring more energy to bear and raise our energy by thinking about how amazing it's going to be when we just connect what we're doing in achievement, and we can actually get to a point where we're actually experiencing achievement and fearlessness. Because one way of pushing through and getting to another level is we have access to power. And we have access to power, it helps us to get beyond the fear and getting out of survival mode and be in growth mode, and just to show up and to show out.